Witamy serdecznie. Jest dzisiaj ze mną Carlis Banis, człowiek znany w sieci jako Dr. Nox, który o Noxach potrafi powiedzieć wszystko. Hello Carlis, how are you?
Hello Karol, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about Nox sensors. What is it for? Why it is so important to have it in truck? And why it is broken so often?
Yes, I get that question a lot. So, we need to understand that Euro 6 truck is a very complex, it has a very complex aftertreatment system. And our doctors, the medical doctors, they have identified a number of poisons that are found inside the exhaust gas, and NOx or nitric oxides, they are one of them. And so they are paying a great deal of attention to get rid of those NOx or nitric oxide emissions from diesel exhaust gas. And we have SCR system together with AdBlue injection that is taking care of these NOx emissions. And then monitoring that process is, of course, NOx sensor. And typically in Euro 6 vehicles we will have two, as we all know. So one will be before the SCR catalysts. So that will monitor simply how much nitric oxides the engine itself is producing. And the other one will be at the outlet, which is monitoring how much nitric oxides the engine, the exhaust pipe is emitting after the SCR has done its job. And so this is how they work. This is the main idea behind them. And here we need to understand that, what the ECU is doing, it's measuring the difference in NOx concentrations from before and after the catalyst. And so it's using that difference to calculate if more AdBlue injection should be necessary, because it tries to understand, is the SCR functioning well, or maybe it's not functioning well, so it's adjusting the AdBlue injection and trying to reach the optimum level of nitrogen oxide emissions at all times. And to answer your question, why they break so often, well, here we need to understand that the actual technology that is used to measure the nitric oxide concentration, it's not simple. There's been major scientific advances in the past to come to this solution that we have right now, and these sensors are extremely delicate devices. And not only that, but they are extremely interconnected with all sorts of different systems that we have on the truck, namely the AdBlue injection system and also the SCR system, but they are also affected by the health of the DPF and the engine itself.
So DPF has any influence on NOx sensors?
Yes, it does. It does,
How
because
is that?
when the DPF is healthy and it's operating normally, everything is fine. But once the DPF is cracked, it is then allowing soot to pass through the system, and that soot is finding its way on top of the NOx sensor, and it's contaminating the measuring element of the NOx sensor. Now, of course, this could be countered by an argument, but we know of vehicles where the NOx sensor is installed before the DPF, so it's in fact all the time living in soot, right? So how can soot affect it? Well, the deal here is that NOx sensors have been designed to take care for given amounts of soot. So some level of soot it can take care, and it can just burn it away and keep operating normally. But when we start seeing engine problems, this is when we have engine oil participating in the system and also engine coolant, well, then our soot becomes very moist and sticky. And that moist and sticky soot, which is, it looks like almost glossy black. So whenever you remove the NOx sensor, perhaps sometimes you've seen the sensor head is looking almost like oily, right? So this is the kind of soot that it's not designed to take care with. So this will contaminate it, and it will just stop operating.
Okay, so let's talk about that case you mentioned. If DPF has some issue, it doesn't allow ashes or soot to go after, yeah? So where's the place, or why it has impact on NOx sensor? When it's fulfilled, it doesn't allow to go further soot out.
Well, in this situation that you're describing, you're correct, and as far as it doesn't allow any soot to pass through the DPF itself, you will have no problems or very little problems with the NOx sensor that is after the DPF. But when you have a situation when the sensor is before the DPF, well, then it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because when you are starting to block the DPF, the pressure is increasing, and sometimes in those situations when there is more back pressure in the system, you'll get additional engine oil participating in the exhaust stream. And that engine oil is going to produce this moist and sticky soot, which is going to contaminate the NOx sensor. But then, when the DPF breaks, you know, because all that pressure has to go somewhere, let's say there's a crack, or maybe the DPF was dislodged from its position, and then some channel opened up where the soot could escape, well, then you are also blowing all that stuff on the NOx sensor that is also after the DPF.
Okay, thank you for your explanation. I would like to ask you, because you are the manufacturer of NOx sensors too, and what is the difference and how to recognize a good NOx sensor and the cheapest imitation?
Well, in this case, we have long held the belief that not all aftermarket sensors are the same. And we need to understand that, well, right now, OEs are not the only players in the market with the NOx sensors. We have not one, but several aftermarket companies that are playing in the same field. And the majority of these companies will be originating in China. There are, of course, other countries that are coming from, but China is, you know, the main source of the NOx sensor. But in this case, I would say it's not so much about where the sensor is coming from. It's more about who is standing behind that sensor, right? So who is putting their name on the line to guarantee that this NOx sensor will work. And in this case, we can recognize there's some cheap imitations, you know, NOx sensors without any brand name. So when you look at the backside cover of the NOx sensor, you will see very often no writing, just, you know, the blank plastic cover. And in this case, we can be sure that this is, you know, something that nobody bears responsibility for, right? So we should try and watch out for products like those. Then, of course, there are products with big brand names, such as Dinex. And so that means that when you buy our product, regardless of where it came from, we are actually responsible for delivering the performance that you expect from us.
So my question after reading some comments on Facebook forums for mechanics is when you have one broken NOx sensor, sometimes mechanics suggest that you should replace both before and after filter NOx sensors, because it is the only way to have or to avoid problems in the future. What do you think about that?
I think this statement is actually correct, and I will attempt to explain why that is so. So we understand that the NOx sensor is designed to measure the NOx concentration. But of course, we need to understand that no sensor can do it 100% accurate. You know, there's some degree of accuracy for every sensor. And what's more is that as that sensor is being used on the vehicle, so it's being driven around with, that accuracy will tend to shift. And like I said before, the ECU is trying to measure the difference in the two concentrations before and after the SCR catalyst. And when the sensors are both fresh, and let's say the truck is driving around, their accuracy is going to shift, but it will shift at the same rate and in the same direction. So let's say they are both losing the accuracy and it just shifts slightly to, you know, the lower regions. We can see the difference is still the same. So the ECU still understands that the SCRs are functioning properly. And now let's say we suspect a problem with the NOx sensor, and so we decide just change only the pre-SCR one, right? So we install it in a fresh condition, suddenly, you know, the accuracy is here, right? So the ECU sees that this difference is no longer normal, and so it will flag an error. And what we will do usually in this case is we'll think, okay,
Even if you have all system working properly, correct, and NOx sensor giving you ppms, even in that case, because of the difference, you will see the failure.
Yes, exactly. Because the ECU will understand that this difference,
difference.
the measurement difference is not within what's considered the normal range, right? Everything is working fine.
So there is no any, for example, the right correct value which should be measured by before NOx sensor and after NOx sensor.
There is some bounds that are considered normal, but essentially it's all about the difference. You know, and if we bring that difference out of tolerance, then the ECU can flag an error because it thinks something is wrong in the system. And so we have to understand this is just a risk. You know, I'm not saying this will happen all the time and every time. We can install only one NOx sensor and drive and still be fine, because as long as you are still within these set bounds of the difference on the set tolerance, then you are safe and everything is working. But we need to understand if we are replacing only one of the sensors, we are essentially risking, right? So sometimes it could take maybe only 1 week of driving so that the difference is growing big enough, you know, because the rate of change is accelerating on one sensor but it's not accelerating on the other. So there's a ton of different situations. But generally, it is recommended to replace both at the same time, simply to minimize this risk.
Okay, we were talking about the used and brand new NOx sensor, but what about if you assemble different companies' manufactured products? For example, one from Dinex and the second one from another company. What would you suggest, and can it work or not?
I would answer actually the same way as I did just to the previous question. Not to say that it will not work, but it has its own risk. You know, because different companies, they are using different chips. And different chips, they have different capabilities. Now, when I say chip, what I mean is there is a sensing element which is found inside the sensor head. It's made from zirconia ceramic, and it is at the center of the NOx sensor operation. It is what's doing the actual measurement, the actual sensing. And this is the most advanced piece inside the NOx sensor. It's what determines how good the sensor is, for a large part. And to make these chips, it's very difficult, so there's not many companies that are able to do it with a very high quality. And when you install, let's say, 2 different NOx sensors, but their chip came from one and the same company, chances are it will work very good. But if you install one that has a very good chip and the other one that has a very bad chip, so poor quality, then you could see initially already that there's some, you know, the difference that the ECU expects is simply not there, or it's not stable enough, right? So in this case, you might see some problems.
I think you have answered another question about how to diagnose properly NOx sensors. Is there something you would like to add to that?
Well, the only thing I would like to add here is that we need to understand how NOx sensors are connected to all the other systems on a vehicle. And whenever we see an error on the ECU that has to do something about NOx, we immediately assume it is the NOx sensor. But I would like to bring it out here that it is actually a million different things that it could be, and we need to make sure that it's none of those before we replace the NOx sensor. Otherwise, we will just run into the same issue again. So the NOx sensor, as I just stated, it's very sensitive to the level of soot inside the system. It's likewise very sensitive to any other contaminants that we could be having there. For example, engine coolant, right? So if we have that traveling through the system and it comes in contact with the NOx sensor, it will ruin it immediately, right? In this situation, we think, okay, well, we have a failed NOx sensor, we replace it, but we didn't fix the coolant leak. And so the next NOx sensor is again destroyed after just a couple of days, you know, because we still have that same coolant which caused the previous issue. Likewise, it is very sensitive to AdBlue injection problems themselves, because, and this is also something which is very often overlooked, It is not only the NOx sensor, which is a very sensitive part of that system, it's also the AdBlue injection system. And we know that AdBlue is necessary for SCR catalysts to work properly. If there is no AdBlue in the system, the SCR is not converting any NOx, and then NOx sensors are simply signaling, hey, there is no difference in NOx concentration. Something is wrong, right? So there will be an error on the NOx sensor. But in this case, we didn't inject any AdBlue, right? So we should check if the AdBlue injection system is operating properly. We should check if there is no AdBlue crystallization signs forming inside the system, because this is a very, very widespread problem. We know that AdBlue is 2/3 water and 1/3 urea, and that urea has a very good tendency to crystallize, so it will form these, almost like white rocks growing inside the exhaust system. When those rocks are growing, they are changing the flow characteristics inside the system, and so the SCR is losing efficiency. And sometimes they can also grow large enough so that they are causing obstruction, and the system is not able to function at all. And so we need to make sure that there is no AdBlue crystals growing in the system. We need to make sure that the AdBlue pump is producing good pressure. We also need to make sure that the AdBlue injector is able to spray the AdBlue in a very nice wide pattern, and we need to make sure it's not dripping, right? So there's plenty of things to address inside the system that could be the result of a malfunctioning NOx sensor. So when we take care of all of this, then we are sure, that, okay, maybe this was a NOx sensor malfunction and we should just replace it. Because after all, it is a maintenance item and the NOx sensor should be replaced every once in a while.
Let's talk about quality of NOx sensors on the market generally. Some mechanics in comments told us that some products are okay and some are not. Do you think that there is a kind of truth in that statement, or everything is made only in China and everything has the same quality? We talk about the known manufacturers on the market.
Well, I will tell you that 99% of aftermarket NOx sensors are indeed made in China, but the quality of the Chinese NOx sensor manufacturers, it varies dramatically. And there you will find a lot of cheap and bad quality parts, but you can also find a lot of very high and good quality parts there. So it's all about how much you are investing. It's all about if you know where to look and what you are looking for. So yeah, in reality, there's a lot of players in the market. Some of them are very good, some of them are not as good. So it all depends on which brand name has established itself in the market and which perhaps is a little bit newer, that you think, okay, they might start to familiarize themselves with the situation in the NOx sensor business. Because to be honest, as is the case also with Dinex, we were initially, the manufacturer of steel parts for exhaust systems, and dealing with steel parts is of course much easier than it is to deal with electronic parts. And when we first did this initial step towards the NOx sensor business, we were also the first player in the NOx sensor aftermarket. We had no idea what to expect there, and it's overwhelmed us, right? So the situation, as we saw developing, simply overwhelmed us, and we were not prepared for it. And so since then, we have had the privilege of learning from a vast amount of claim data to understand really what is the situation in the market, what kinds of issues the customers are running into, what kinds of questions do they want answered, right? And so from that, we've been given the chance to work on a much better quality NOx sensor, and since we have introduced Gen 2. So I can say that, yeah, we have one of the best NOx sensors in the aftermarket. I will not go as far as to say that all the other NOx sensors in the aftermarket are not good. This is probably not true. But if you are looking for a brand to trust, then I suggest to try Dinex.
So your suggestion is to trust in your experience, yeah?
Yes, exactly, because this is what sets us apart a little bit from the rest of the aftermarket NOx competition, is that we were the first guys in there, you know? And even though we did fail initially with the Generation 1, we then used the chance to learn from that mistake and to try and bring something that really functions to the market.
Okay. The Dynex is inside the automotive market from a long time. Do you know something about Euro 7? What will happen in the future and how it will be, looks like?
Yes, we do know a fair bit of rumors of a Euro 7 system. And one thing to note here is that there's going to be more emphasis put on the particulate matter. And in this case, there's the introduction of particulate matter sensors. And this is something that we on the sidelines are also working currently because we know that the newest versions of the Euro 6 systems already have these sensors. We know that Euro 7 system is definitely going to have those. But in terms of technology, what kind of technology is going to be used in the Euro 7 system, well, that has not been truly decided yet, but I can give some hints. So it is in the focus of a Euro 7 system to focus on starting the engine emissions. Because when we start a cold engine, it is the period of time that it takes for it to heat up is actually 90% of its lifetime emissions. You know? And in this regard, this cold operation is the main focus for the Euro 7 system. So we can expect some electric heaters to be implemented in the exhaust system to bring it up to heat faster. That, plus there is, again, decreasing allowed levels of nitric oxides. So we can assume that there's going to be more emphasis on NOx control, and there's probably going to be additional SCRs somewhere in the system. So it's going to be bigger, more expensive, and more advanced.
Thank you very much. Naszym gościem był Karlis Banis, człowiek znany w sieci jako Dr. Nox, twarz Dynexa. Bardzo dziękujemy, Karlis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karol.